And we are live. So, welcome to An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. Uh, we are here with our continuing coverage of Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass. And today, we just got through watching episode 3. No, episode 4.
There you go.
Book 4. Called Lamentations, which we find out is about the destruction of Jerusalem. And if you don't know already, the city of Jerusalem was destroyed and rebuilt 7 different times.
Okay.
So it's been through a lot. And it's not a humorous, cheerful episode in the least. A lot of rough things are happening in this episode. It's not an episode that makes you feel happy when it's over with. You're like, yes. Talking about this in Flanagan, people describing it to you, and I'm here tonight with Eric from Hey Internet Eric here. So thank you again for joining me.
Of course.
People describe this to you as a slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's an accurate description, but I would hate for anyone to look at that as a detractor.
Right.
Because this is a extremely high level of writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wholly original story. There's no story that I've ever heard of that's like this. And you've just got top-notch performances from people who are not A-list stars. There's no DiCaprio in this. There's no Gary Oldman. There's no Anthony Hopkins.
Right.
There's no Tom Cruise. There's no Christian Bale. Who are the top actresses nowadays? I don't. Jenna Ortega. She's popular nowadays.
Yeah,
I wouldn't exactly consider her a top-notch actress. There's no Gal Gadot.
Right. I think we said it last episode is like the biggest name of all people is Henry Thomas.
Henry Thomas. Yes, Henry Thomas, who is a Flanagan standby.
Yep.
One of his go-to guys, and extremely versatile.
Mm-hmm.
An extremely versatile actor. He doesn't do big over-the-top things, but within this sort of medium-sized set of parameters, if you're within his sphere, he does a hell of a job.
Yeah, I think because I've seen a lot of Henry stuff. Most of it when he was a child. He was a very good child actor. He disappeared for quite some time, and then he came back, and he did a lot of indie films, and a lot of it was straight to video horror. He did a couple like made for TV Stephen King movies and stuff like that, and he was just a guy in there for 5 to 10 minutes to die and then move on. I think, other than Doctor Sleep, but then again, his role in Doctor Sleep is pretty small. I think he's really good in these television shows where he has a chance to build up his character. Hill House, Bly Manor, this. But in those small roles, and
he's in Gerald's Game.
Yeah, I think that's what is good is in these small doses, and it's always small doses with Flanagan. Gerald's Game, he's not in it very much. Doctor Sleep, not very much. That's his strength because he is the type of actor I think that feeds off others.
Yeah, that sounds accurate. He's not an A-list star like we said. You're not going to see him up in the new John Wick or anything like that. But within these, smaller sorts of parts, he really does shine.
Yeah.
Tell me, without giving the game away, what your initial impressions are of this past week's episodes. Both of us just having finished it before we went on the stream.
Well, you said it's not a happy episode. It started off really, really depressing for me with how it starts, and then more and more it's just we get some backstories, which just breaks your heart with a lot of the stuff that you learn about these people, and then when we get some more, no pun intended, revelations about different stuff, it goes from depression to more of this oh shit moments, and we want to know where this is, and it's all unexpected stuff. and especially there's one scene in particular, a lot of these quick cuts that Flanagan likes to do. So yeah, I could see why this would be. A lot of people would say this would be a slow burn, but it's really good because we get those backstories and that character development.
Yeah, it's the advantage of having these limited series that Flanagan does, not the series that go on for 10 or 12 seasons.
Right.
These sorts of things, he's giving you 7 episodes, he's giving you 10 episodes, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what Taylor Sheridan is doing now with 1883. He said he wanted to make a 10-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, guess what? And now I have a chance to do it. And I want to cast Sam Elliott in it and, all these other people in it. And, I want to do this other thing with Harrison Ford. I want to make another 10-hour movie. And, so, that's what's happening here. And Flanagan, for all intents and purposes, even though he's done some really good, 2 or 3 hour films like Hush, less than 90 minutes, Dr. Sleep, about 3 hours. Oculus and these other sorts of things, really seems to really cut his teeth and shine the most in these, extended sorts of stories.
When he's given more time to play, he does really well.
Yeah. We start off with Erin, and Erin is going to check on her baby, only to find out that there is no baby.
Right.
There's no traditional miscarriage, any of the signs of, the traditional sorts of mishaps that would occur within these sorts of situations. There simply is no baby or any sign of any baby suddenly in her uterus.
Yeah,
which is an odd fucking way to kick off an episode.
Yeah.
It's an odd fucking thing to do to a baby. It's not something I've ever seen before in another movie, but that's not a complaint.
Yeah, that was a really big attention grabber because we did get something. I don't know if it was the last episode or the one before that, where she did have a little bit of spotting or something like that, where she had to go to the doctor to check, and the doctor herself said the baby is fine. And that's a natural occurrence with pregnancy. But now the fact that the baby is just flat out gone, no heartbeat, no nothing, no visual, you don't know what the fuck's happening now because everybody's having all these good things happen to them. You know what I mean? And then this is how this starts. This episode.
Yeah, and that was, one of the major things that we talked about last week, in that the town seemed to be, this dying town, seemed to be experiencing some kind of rebirth. People's health their health was improving, spirits were improving, people were forgiving each other, people were getting sober, starting to, make amends. Riley's trying to make his lists of amends.
Yep.
Maybe he's formed a relationship with Erin.
Right.
These sorts of things. Henry Thomas and his wife, they've rekindled a little bit of the physicality back in their marriage again. They've got a little, sex going on, maybe, for older couples, that kind of wanes off, so on and so forth. And, the church is filling up and, everything seems to be looking good.
Liza can walk and she forgive Joe, It's...
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Forgiveness is happening. Yep. People are picking up with their lives. Nobody's questioning it.
Right. They're just accepting it.
Yeah, and maybe that's, in a way, the best way to be. Where they say, Lisa's parents say in the beginning, we don't want to interrogate a miracle.
Right.
We're going to accept this on face value and not look a gift horse in the mouth.
Let's not jinx it.
Right, but we find out that, this sort of upturn has a short half-life. And we start off, Erin's baby has disappeared out of her uterus. Strange fucking words to say, at any given time. We also come back to the church, and Father Paul is sort of locked in his room there with Bev. And he's struggling, let's say, quite a bit.
Right, because the last time we saw him, he was on the floor having a seizure, basically. Blood red eyes and everything.
And it looked like he had died. There was blood coming out of his eyes. And then all of a sudden, he just comes back, to life, so to speak. And that's kind of how the episode ended.
Right.
Here, we see him, and he's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
There's something, he's in pain, or something like that. And, Bev and, Joe and, that couple, they're there to look out for him, so on and so forth. And they're a little spooked.
Yeah.
This guy just kind of came back from the dead, and, they kind of are afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first time that we're seeing, people are starting to be a little freaked out
Mm-hmm.
by him. They're starting to have questions.
Yeah, he's starting to seem very unnatural.
Yeah, it's unnatural kind of whatever that he's going through here.
Mm-hmm.
So Bev is trying. Man, she really earns her money in this episode.
Yeah, and
This actress.
I knew right away. And this, I mean, it's great for her character. When her and Father Paul are talking, she knows what's going on.
She knows that
deduces it
he's
pretty well.
Monsignor Pruitt.
Yeah, she figures it out quick, like that.
Yeah.
This is another. We keep talking about her. You call her the old buzzard. This is a perfect example where she's back in charge of something.
Yes. She's
She
always looking for a toe hold, a foot hold, a finger hold,
Mm-hmm.
some way to maintain her place at the top of the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is. And I just thought that this was a great shot.
Yes.
Of the two of them, and you can see the light.
Yeah, on her just her silhouette.
Well, it's not so much the silhouette as the light has, and I think we see it at this point in the episode, that the light has become a barrier for Paul.
Yeah, because he reaches, because he's got a scar on his hand, and I don't remember in the flashback if he was bitten on the hand, because I thought he was bitten on the neck. He could have been both, but he looks at his scar on his hand, and then he puts it towards the light to get a better look, and it starts sizzling like a vampire.
Yeah. He starts cooking. He
Yep.
starts cooking in the light. So he pulls back. And I just thought that this was a great shot, because whatever kind of a monster Bev is, she literally is a human being. And you're absolutely right. And it's a perfect description that what's going on with Father Paul or Monsignor Pruitt, whatever you want to call him, is quite unnatural.
Yes.
And so there's this barrier that he can't cross.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simple sunlight.
Yep.
But Bev can. So, she's trying to talk to him about disclosing who he actually is, and that this is part of the miracle that the town is experiencing, because he literally is their returned spiritual leader and an angel of the Lord. I guess at some point he must have disclosed this to her, because she even knows about that. I find it hard to believe that in the last episode he was confessing to. No, he was, because he wasn't. He wasn't confessing to Bev, because he was talking about what he was going to do before he even met everybody.
Right.
But at some point between this episode and the end, Bev has gotten to the bottom of everything. Yeah. Well, not everything. Not everything.
Right. We're not sure how much time has passed in between the episodes. I don't know, maybe a couple days, maybe a week, if that. I don't know when it comes to the AA meetings, because Riley has another meeting with Father Paul, so I don't know if that's a weekly thing, if it's a daily thing, but it's at least been 24 hours, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm looking, and I think at some point they did talk about it being a week. He'll be Joe when they talk about Joe at the meeting. He'll be back with us next week.
Okay.
So, yeah, maybe it is some sort of weekly thing, so on and so forth. But she wants him to disclose to the town who he actually is. Mm-hmm. She's not quite aware of what the sunlight is doing at this point.
Right, not yet.
And, we kind of leave it at that. Then we come back to Riley and his dad, Henry Thomas. Mm-hmm. And, they haven't. We talked about this, I think, when we talked about Pinocchio with imperfect fathers and sons. Mm-hmm. And that's what they kind of are, and fathers and sons, they may not be the greatest communicators with each other.
Right.
Henry Thomas seems, very much an old school, kind of keeps his feelings to himself kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And he, here he's, he's talking. Well, you go ahead, take it.
Well,
What's the conversation about?
he's finally starting to open up, and it was nice to see that wall was it's not down, but like the bricks are being pulled apart. You know what I mean? It's starting to lower a little bit. And he was just talking about the resentment that he had for him and this and that, and it's something I think that, as bad as it sounds, that Riley needed to hear for any type of bond to be fixed.
There has to be some truth.
Right.
There
You
has to
can't
be
keep
some
secrets.
truth.
No bullshit. You know what I mean? If you want something to be fixed, you got to be 100% truthful with the
Yeah.
person you have a problem with.
Yeah, it's rigorous honesty, as they say
Mm-hmm.
in the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting that Henry Thomas's resentments weren't about necessarily about this DUI,
Mm-hmm.
this catastrophic DUI, but went back much further before that.
Right.
He was angry at his son that his son didn't want that kind of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that he felt his son kind of thumbed his nose.
Yeah.
That he was sort of above all of that.
Yeah, you're too big for this little fishing town type of thing.
Yeah, which is an odd thing because I'm not a parent. You're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that the average parent,
You want the best for your
wants their
kid.
child to do better than
Yes.
they do.
You set an example to them. Like, this is just how I look at it. Like, I'm setting an example to my kid, hardworking, respectful, stuff like that, so you can be better than me. You always want to be better than the generation that came before you.
Except in this case, Henry Thomas is human too,
Right.
and he feels snubbed.
Yeah, I took it as
Like his son is condescending, or his son has always condescended to him.
right. I took it as, yes, Henry Thomas wanted Riley to be better than him, have that good life, but he kind of took it as a smack in the face. I think because maybe Henry took it as like, my life isn't good enough for you.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily a personal attack, like on purpose, but he's just like, oh, we're not good enough for you right now, type of thing. Just the way, they must have responded to each other in the past.
Which was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't feel that Riley was necessarily wrong. He wasn't happy there.
Right.
He knew that there was no future there. Being young, he probably wasn't very good at holding back about it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think, he hurt his father's, without meaning to, he hurt his father's feelings.
Right.
And then on top of that, it becomes
this. He probably didn't even realize it either.
Yeah, I think when they're having this conversation on the boat, because it really is not the type of thing that, a parent would say to a child.
Right.
That the fact that you want more kind of hurts my feelings, this kind of thing. We talked about this a little bit in It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm.
Where Gary Cooper in the very beginning of the movie is like, I got to get out of this town, and just for that split second, you can see it hurts his father's feelings, this kind of thing. But then on top of that, it's turned into this catastrophic DUI with the deaths. And so after doing all that nose thumbing, he ends up ruining everything. He kind of ruins or heavily damages the family standing in the community.
Yep.
Because now their son has killed someone.
Yeah, it's always going. Like I said, it's that small town. That family there. You know what their son did, right? It's that type of situation.
And not even that. It's drained their savings.
Yeah, that's true.
Probably the dad's retirement savings.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to pay for the legal fees.
Yeah.
And so it's this resentment on top of a failure.
Mm-hmm.
By the son who thumbed his nose, and then and so it's just this ball of angst.
I'm sure Riley's father is probably just telling himself, if you would have just fucking stayed home, stayed with your family that wasn't good enough, you know what I mean? None of this would have happened. I'm sure he's got that in the back of his mind too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's going to add to the resentment.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing that happens here. But in the end, dad is able to tell his son that he loves him.
Yeah.
It's, what's happened is what's happened. You're my son, I love you. I guess he sees he's trying to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
He can tell that his son is devastated by what's happened. He's lost 4 years of his life in prison. So he's kind of paid his debt to society, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
even if though he clearly hasn't forgiven himself.
Right.
From there, we move on to let's see, Sarah, whose mother seems to be making a full recovery.
Oh yeah, it looks like 100%.
Is looking very youthful
Mm-hmm.
or younger.
Yeah,
Is
healthier.
looking younger than this bedridden, sort of dementia-ridden, person who is just
Mm-hmm.
kind of waiting to die.
Right.
She's moving around. She's reciting, her life history
Yeah,
to her daughter.
that was really cool to see. That was like a really good added touch, just having Sarah kind of quiz her on her history. Who am I? Who's dad? This and that. Where did you meet? That type of stuff.
And she's just able to spout everything
Oh yeah.
right off, which again is another unnatural thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then we come to something that's quite interesting with this sample of blood,
Right.
which we see start to boil
Mm-hmm.
and then ultimately just sort of flash.
Yep.
Just kind of goes up in flames. An interesting connection, just another unnatural thing that's happening.
Right.
What is your thinking at this point?
I'm thinking that this might be one of those type of situations we've seen in movies or stories, how like there must be one sacrifice for the greater good. So I'm wondering that, intended or not, for Aaron, that the sacrifice, and this is just going up to episode 4, this is just me thinking, she unwillingly had to sacrifice her unborn child for the rebirth of the town. That's
Okay.
the thing I was going for.
Okay, so that's where you're at right now.
That's where
okay.
I am. Right
or is
now.
that where you're at this particular point in the episode, or is this generally where you're at?
This is where I am at right now in general.
Okay, this is where you're at right now in general.
Right.
Okay. So we come to what I consider to be one of the roughest, probably the roughest scene in the episode, which is Aaron and Riley
Yeah.
having this conversation, an extremely brutal conversation,
Mm-hmm.
where we get to find out, again, like you talked about, some of the backstory.
Yeah.
And Aaron's mother.
Mm-hmm.
And just what a narcissistic, sort of self-absorbed human being she kind of was.
Yeah, we knew from just little, pillow talk or whatever, them walking around, that her mother was a severe alcoholic, and that's it.
Yeah.
We didn't really know the extent of it, but when she was just revealing just the physical abuse, the emotional abuse, everything that this woman did to her child, it was just disgusting.
Yeah,
and heartbreaking.
And the way that the mother seemed to have done it in just this matter-of-fact way.
Yeah, it's real life. That's just how it is.
Yeah, purchasing birds to have the daughter hold them while she clipped their wings.
Mm-hmm.
All these awful, things. Holding up that sign of embroidery from the Book of Lamentations.
Mm-hmm.
There is no suffering like my suffering.
Yeah.
Just complete, self-absorption.
Yeah, your day sucked. Well, guess what? Here's mine.
Whatever it is, it's not as bad as
mm-hmm.
this. And if you've ever been around anybody like that, they're just exhausting.
Yeah, they literally suck the life out of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's everybody's already depressed, but then when they walk in the room, it's just like this black hole.
Yeah, and she runs away. I'm going to join a band, all these different dreams and this, that, and the other. And, what ends up happening really, she ends up just, going on some sort of party tour, so to speak. And, she's talking about, by the time the drugs wore off, she's married to this guy who she ends up marrying the personification of her mother.
Yeah.
Who's just, abusive, and he's an alcoholic, and then he's hitting her like the mother was hitting her, and she's she just kind of runs and comes back here.
She runs away to escape, and then she's right back where she started from, and now she's pregnant by him.
Yeah, and now she's lost this baby, and it's very odd. In the sense that we're probably 30 minutes, this is like a 70-minute episode.
Yeah.
we're 30 minutes or so into this episode and nothing really supernatural has happened. Nothing too many, the blood and,
Yeah.
you got father, he can't, Monsignor Pruitt, he can't really get into the sunlight, so to speak.
Yeah. It's pretty much two blink and you'll miss it scenes.
Yeah, but otherwise, it's just the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the story so far. And it's really fucking good.
Yeah. It's again, we're back to, and what have we been seeing? This is episode 4 of the show, episode 4 of our discussion. We keep going back to the best scenes, other than the jump out and scare you type shit scenes. You know what I mean? The
Yeah,
best scenes are just conversations between two people, because it can showcase how good of actors this cast is, and this is probably one of the strongest scenes of the entire show up till now. With these two, with Riley, what happens. They're explaining to each other what happens when we die, and Riley is basically saying nothing. Our brains shut down, the body shuts down, this and that. But then Aaron has this really sad but very sweet. She discusses, I'm not going to say it for myself, but I'm going to say it for that baby I had, and
yeah,
this is wonderful.
yeah,
She looks at it like, the baby is in heaven and meeting all the good people that have been waiting for her.
yeah,
Great grandma. She mentions her dad, so obviously she
yeah,
loved her father. Because
yeah.
to my knowledge, we know nothing about her father,
Right.
and it's just great. And then she talks about how they'll be reunited and this and that. So it was such a sweet scene, or a sweet moment, and such a depressing scene. It just shows how good Flanagan can get these performances out of these people by just basically saying talk.
Yeah, yeah. It's and they're just both they've kind of been defeated by life,
Mm-hmm.
up until this point, and the only people who would understand it
Yep.
are the two of them.
Yep.
Like Riley can't talk to anybody in town about this.
Right.
Maybe Father Paul,
Right.
Monsignor Pruitt. That would be about it. And maybe Aaron's the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody to talk this over with.
They have
Um,
nobody.
yeah. We also come to an interesting thing where, Father Paul is experiencing, or Monsignor Pruitt, he is experiencing these painful cramps,
Mm-hmm.
or, there's something going on. And, he's praying and he's praying and he's praying, that this is, whatever he's suffering from is
Right.
going to, be relieved.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's praying so hard that he's cut his hand open from squeezing his rosary.
Yes.
And he starts to drink the blood out of his hand.
Yeah,
and then he starts cutting himself with the rosary to get more blood going to. And you're just like, oh, this is fucked up.
That was some disturbing shit, because
Yeah.
he drank the blood, and then he enjoyed it and he wanted more, and he was willing to harm himself to get more.
And again, there's this recurring, Christian, allegory, comparison going on, with the blood being the body of, the Christ, and, this
Right.
eternal life, and, this resurrection, these promises, with the new covenant. And, I don't know whether he believes, and I think he does, that he's on some sort of profound path. But, there's obviously a great deal of suffering, because he believes the thing that he saw in Jerusalem was an angel.
Right.
That has done this thing to him. We also see Joe. Things are getting a little shaky. Joe is standing standing there looking at that whole fridge full of Old Milwaukee. Jesus Christ, that's bad beer.
I drink Old Milwaukee.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh, for God's sake.
I like my cheap old man beers, dude.
I like PBRs, but I'm not going so far as the Old Milwaukee. But there it is.
If it was me, I would have chosen the Coors Banquet up top. But that's
sure.
But Joe, not to talk stereotypes. Joe looks like the guy that's going to get drunk on Old Milwaukee. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's a cheap swill beer guy. Well, it would be different. Like if that was like Schlitz, that'd be perfect for Joe. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, Father Paul, he's making the rounds now. He's feeling he's moving around at night. He's giving Mildred the mass.
Well, let's go back to that scene with Joe. I thought that was a really good scene, because we're rooting for him now. You know what I mean? And we don't want him
Right.
to grab that beer. I'm thinking he's thinking of stealing it. You know what I mean? Just
No, we don't want
pocketing.
him. We want him to stay
Yeah,
on the wagon.
right. I think he's just gonna he's fighting to just pocket a can. That's all he wants is a can of beer. And then behind him we got the sheriff, and he's just like, "Hey, how you doing? Gonna cause some trouble tonight?" No, no. And I think if I hate to say it, if Sharif did not show up that night, I think Joe would have done it.
Yeah.
I do, and I'm not gonna. I had such a smile on my face when he walked out, hands free of beer.
Yeah, because you get the feeling that he's fighting like for his soul.
Mm-hmm.
That if he can cleanse his soul of this addiction.
Right.
And I mean, he dies in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't die through alcohol related, some sort of alcohol related accident or whatever.
Yeah.
So do you want him to die a sober man, or
Right.
do you want him to die, still in active addiction? Because
Yeah.
any length of recovery really only comes down to that individual day.
Mm-hmm.
So on that day, was he, and he ends up being sober when he passes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no real reference to that, but somehow you get the impression, or at least I got the impression,
Mm-hmm.
that was important.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize that or think about that until now, but lack of a better term, his soul was clean when
Yeah.
he passed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was still struggling, but at least he did not fail.
Yeah.
He
Yeah. I mean,
he
because
he
at
faced
any moment anybody could die.
he faced the temptation, and then he survived it. Which, and like I said, I thought that was, again, it showed how good this actor was too.
Yes. It also showed, and how can I put this? You got to see a little something from Father Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, you start to see what could be perceived as a bit of menace. Joe is clearly freaked out by it. He goes in there and he sees the father, drinking out of the mass wine,
Mm-hmm.
out of the carafe.
Okay.
And he's like, "Oh, I've been there before."
Right.
It's the first thing, I've been there.
Yeah.
Anything, any port in a storm, that kind of thing. And he's like, I'm not judging. Who am I to? But there's something different. I don't know if you picked up on. There's something different about Father Paul.
Well, you saw Father Paul, and this isn't the first time we've seen it, because it happened in either the last episode or the episode before. One of the altar boys caught him. He's pouring some type of red liquid into the wine.
Yeah.
And we by the end of the episode, we know what it is.
Right.
And he's doing it to survive. So he knew he had to do this to continue on. So this isn't the first time he's poured this into the wine, but now it's pretty much consumed him.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I just thought of it now. It's kind of like this is his crutch, like Joe with the alcohol. Lesser extent, this is Father Paul's. He has to do this to survive, type of thing, or to feel like he has to survive.
Yeah, there's something going on there, and Joe is clearly not comfortable with what he's seeing.
Mm-hmm.
He's very freaked out about it. He doesn't really want, he was already afraid of Father Paul a little bit after the resurrection, of sorts last week.
Mm-hmm.
So now and I don't know, there's just a look on Father Paul's face where he's just a little fucking feral looking.
Yeah, he is very, very menacing, because he's telling Joe, "Good job. I'm proud of you for not basically taking that can of Old Milwaukee." You know what I mean? I'm proud of you. And then, I'm not gonna lie, I got real uncomfortable when he, instead of like, "Hey, Mike, good job. I'm gonna offer you my hand to shake your hand, pat you on the back," type of thing.
Yeah.
Or, bring you in and then give you a hug. He literally outstretches his arms.
Yeah.
He's like, "Come here."
Yeah.
"Come here," type of thing.
Yeah,
And
it's a little predatory.
I'm not gonna. The first thing I thought of, is
there it is, right there.
Yeah, he's got that lollipop. Let's come into my van. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's something going on, and he's, just trying, like the spider and the fly
Yes.
kind of thing happening. And you see the look on his face is different than the look that we've seen on him. And we were just talking about last week how he's playing everything low key. When he was in the AA meeting with Riley, and he's like, any answer I could give you isn't going to be good enough for you.
Yeah, you won't believe me. Yep.
Yeah, you won't believe me. It's not good enough. Now, anybody else will be fine with it, but no, not you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gone from that. He's got kind of a sweaty, desperate thing going on now in this episode.
Yeah.
It's disconcerting, and he hugs him, and you can tell Joe is clearly uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
And he won't let him go.
That's
and
what,
so
it's already uncomfortable, but you hug a guy, you're done. But he won't
Yeah.
let him go, and that's where Joe's basically like, he's saying it too. Joe cusses like a sailor, but he's saying it too.
What the fuck are you doing?
Get the fuck off of me! What the fuck are you doing? Type of thing. And
because he's starting to sniff him.
Yes,
he's sniffing
like
him.
An animal.
It's like Joe Biden. It's like you're running for president. What the fuck are you doing in here? Jesus Christ. And he's trying to push him off. And when he pushes him off, he falls backwards and just cracks his head wide fucking open.
Right on that fucking coffee table. And you see it. It's just a boom.
Yeah. And then we go from there. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Okay. And it's one of those moments, you mentioned Biden. I was thinking like the creeper from Jeepers Creepers, which is still creepy considering the director.
Sure, it's just the creeper is not he's not president of the United States,
right? But when first it's a brutal fall, and Joe's not dead, he's twitching. You know what I mean? He's looking, he's gagging, he's staring right at the father. And then when I saw the blood come out, and it's he's just bleeding out, I'm like, fucking Christ, he is not going to check on Joe. He is literally going to go down there and start slurping,
and you can hear the slurping sounds.
It's kind of funny. I knew that Flanagan wouldn't do it. I was waiting for him to like pull out a fucking straw. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he, like an animal, he just got done sniffing his prey. Now he's eating the prey, and I'm just like, that is what's so good. I've said it before. I'm a sound type of guy. Okay. You don't see him licking the blood because that looked goofy as shit, and an adult man just licking it like a cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just hear the slurping noises, and that makes it even like more cringy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you've seen other things, and I've seen other movies where that's happened with vampirism. Mm-hmm. They have a small scene in Let the Right One In where they do it. I think in some of the Warhol Draculas, Udo Kier, I think he's Dracula, and I think there's a scene where he does it, but it's just a little tiny like pool of blood. Here, it's just this great gout, these great gouts of black blood, and then it goes from there where he's just drinking the blood he's sucking the blood right out of the top of his fucking head.
That's the cut that got me to say, "Oh shit!"
Because and you're like, "Oh, this is fucked up." Yeah. He's gotten underneath, and I thought he was lifting him. Like I thought he had like regained some modicum of control of himself and like lifted him up to try to give him some help or something, like almost in a war movie. But no, he's drinking the blood directly from the fucking head wound, and you're just like, "Fuck, man!"
I thought the same thing because how do I say this, Father Paul? I still think he is a good person. There's just something unnatural happening to him. I think he was struggling. He needed to hug Joe, kill Joe to survive. I don't think he wanted to do it. So what I thought was, like you said, he got his crazy straw out. He slurped up the blood, and then I thought he was kind of holding him, maybe giving him last rites, maybe maybe apologizing. But nope, you just see him just gnawing on the top of his fucking head.
It's a hell of a scene. And again, this is an episode without a great deal. We're coming to the place where things are melding together, and by next week we'll be there. I'll tell you that much, and you'll understand. But yeah, I think what you see is you can accept on face value.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not handing out the spoilers here because we still have 3 more episodes to
Right.
go. But I think it's fair to say that what you're seeing is
Yeah.
what's actually happening here. That kind of thing. And we also have Ali wanting to go to mass,
Mm-hmm.
which is a difficult scene for the sheriff, but I guess you have to pick your battles. He's a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
and at worst, his son wants to go to church.
Right.
But they are kind of bigoted towards. I've said this before. They are kind of the people in that town are kind of bigoted. It's a passive kind of bigotry.
Yeah, they just look down at you, and he said that, and that's what Sharif told Ali. That's what I like. Complete difference from Riley and his father. Sharif and Ali. He's telling him straight up. He's like, they'll never accept you, but I'm not going to stop you to go. I respect you for wanting to find God. I would never stop you for wanting to find God, but
Right.
we've already found him. He
Right.
made sure to put that in there. He says, but we've already found him, and they'll
Yeah,
never
and he
accept
says,
you because you're not a Christian.
Yeah, he says, Ali is like, I won't take communion. He goes, you can't.
Right.
You're not a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So go, but I'm not crazy about it, but
Right.
there's only so much I can do here.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've generally reached this conclusion that most parents, most of their role in parenting, it has a lot to do with playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're just trying to roll with it most of the time. That kind of thing. So I think Sheriff is trying to roll with the son in this small town, and suddenly the hot thing that he wants to do is go to church. So there are worse things that could be happening. The parent.
He's not hanging out with the one kid that was killed selling weed or crack or something like that.
Yeah. He's not drinking, or anything like that. He wants to go to church.
Yeah, he hasn't knocked up a girl. He just wants to go to church.
He just wants to go to church. So okay, we can live with this.
Mm-hmm.
Bev. This is where Bev comes to shine because
yes,
Monsignor Pruitt is incapable of attending mass because there's a fucking dead person in the middle of the floor.
Holy shit!
Go ahead.
I did not expect her to walk in on this. I expected Father Paul to clean it up and then just maybe be passed out in the bed. The fact that she walks in, we still see Joe's dead body. The blood hasn't been cleaned up. And then Father Paul is literally in the corner against the fridge, covered in blood, and he just hasn't moved.
His mouth is covered in blood.
Mm-hmm.
His face is covered in blood.
Yep.
And he's just a fucking wreck.
And he's been sitting there for hours because if you remember, it was nighttime when Joe left the convenience store. And now, as you can see, it's daytime through the window. So he's been sitting there for hours.
Well, he's also pinned in by the sunlight.
That's true. I know.
He's pinned in by the sunlight. And this is the first time she sees his skin cooking when he tries to get through the light.
And you know what the funny thing is? The funny thing, she sees there's a dead fucking body on the ground. Okay? Blood on the floor. Something happened. You got a priest caked in dried blood sitting in the corner. What'd she say? All right, we got to get you cleaned up. You got to go to mass. You know what I mean?
She's a complete fucking lunatic. She's a psychopath.
Yeah, it doesn't affect her. And then I like that little thing. He's like, he basically says, well, we have a little bit of a problem. And he puts his hand in the sunlight and it starts to crisp up a little bit. And then she's just like, okay, let's see what we can do. We'll roll with it.
I was just going, I put it in the notes. I said she would have been a great mob boss.
Oh, yeah.
Just burying bodies, dropping them in the cement.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get 2 tons of cement out here. Let's get to that construction yard and just drop them on in there. This kind of thing. Just a complete fucking psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, the way that she bullied Lisa's father.
She guilts him into it.
Yeah,
because he wants to call the cops. This is a murder or whatever happened. We don't know. And she knows the fucking buttons to push. Because this is the man that crippled your daughter.
Yeah, and it's just blasphemy after blasphemy.
Oh, that's right, because he says something and she slaps him.
Yeah,
And then
and
she
she
says
starts
like a Bible
quoting
verse.
scripture.
Yes.
You don't question the priest. You'll be struck dead.
Yep.
If you want to give all these things back that, God or this priest has given you, then, and it's just this awful fucking rant
Yeah.
that only someone, with absolutely no fucking spine
Yeah.
would listen to.
Mhm. She's
But
a
these
definite
people are
sociopath.
systematic.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, saying, she is a definite sociopath. She knows what to say to get what she wants. You know what I mean? She will guilt trip you. She will twist her words. And again, this actress is just so amazing. And she is just such a great TV villain because again, with these episodes, we're getting build up. You know what I mean? At first, she was just some, crotchety old bitch or buzzard, like you call her. And now she's poisoned dogs. And now
Yeah.
she's hiding a body and guilt tripping people into
Covering it up.
covering it up and not saying a word.
Yeah, and using God to do it.
Yep.
Using God to fucking do it. I mean, yeah, she's just, yeah,
Awful.
she's a monster.
Yes.
She's a monster. He might be drinking blood. I'm sure we're leaning into starting to think that he's a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
But she's the real fucking monster here.
It's like we've always gone back to like Stephen King. You know what I mean? He does a really good job of showing that the humans are the real monsters. You know what I mean? In a world of vampires and in this world, either angels and demons or whatever the fuck that thing is. You know what I mean? The real monsters are us.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Just go through your Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding.
So, we come back and we're getting a second opinion on the pregnancy.
Yeah.
And this doctor recommends a psych eval.
Yeah, I couldn't believe this. Now, this was really fucking weird. She was never pregnant to begin with, supposedly. So it just literally vanished.
Yeah, it's just, there's no evidence of anything that she was ever pregnant, and the doctor just thinks she's crazy.
Right.
Would you like to speak to a psychiatrist?
Mm-hmm.
These sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then I get to what is probably my favorite. We're coming to the end here.
Mm-hmm.
We get to what I consider to be my favorite scene in the whole fucking show, which is because Riley goes to another AA meeting. We talked past that, but he goes to another and he catches Father Paul in a lie about Joe.
Yes.
Saying Joe has gone to visit his sister.
Yep.
Who Riley already knows is dead.
Yep.
And that was a huge part of their conversation last week.
Yep.
Joe has been so guilt-ridden that he just couldn't face anyone. And even when his sister died, he couldn't leave the island to attend.
And I loved, excuse me, I love how Riley didn't question him on it.
Yeah.
He just listened.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of gave that, okay, I know you're full of shit look.
Right.
But I'm not going to say anything.
And Father Paul didn't pick up on it because he didn't know about Riley and Joe's conversation.
Correct. And that's good too, because lots of times you would see these type of shows. He's like, oh, really? Well, I heard she was dead. No, he just keeps quiet. So now he has a reason to investigate or tell people, which he does, that Paul is not who he seems to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hold on a second. We got Heroic Waffles here saying, hey, what's happening, man? Thanks for stopping in. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We're just here talking some Flanagan and hanging out. So we come to the end. Riley sort of warns his mother, watch out for this guy. Pray all you want. Believe anything you want, but just it's not this guy. This guy is not the savior.
Yep. And I love how he worded it. He specifically said, Father Paul lied to me.
Yeah. What do you mean? Wait, why is that?
I mean that kind to me that kind of hits it kind of hits the nail on the head. Like, you can't trust this guy because he specifically lied to me today.
Yeah.
It's not just, I don't trust him. It's like,
oh, okay. Yeah.
I caught him in a lie.
He has a reason.
Right.
He has a reason. Okay. So that comes to we're coming to the end here.
Oh
And
Jesus.
I think Riley decides that he's going to confront Father Paul about it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame because he's got an invitation to come. He and
Yep.
Aaron end up sleeping together. But it's
I
just
was.
sleep. It looks like sleep.
Yeah,
And
I think
they,
he just stayed the night. I don't think it was anything physical. I think he just
right.
stayed the
Yeah, they
night.
stayed in the bed, but
Yeah.
she clearly invites him back to come back tonight.
Right. It's
And
something's gonna
with
happen.
this, it was obvious to me, at least, or clear to me, that she was inviting him in for something more.
Right.
Come back tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Come back tonight. I'm going to do this thing in the mainland. And come back and spend time with me tonight. And he's like, yeah, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of thing. And it's this organic thing that has been coming for like 4 episodes. Go
I
ahead.
love that. I love that too. It was it's the scene at mass where Father Paul can't make it, and then Henry Thomas looks at Riley. He's like, "You didn't come home last night, did you?"
Hmm.
No, and he's just just kind of like, "I know what you were doing out there, boy." You know what I mean? So
Yeah, well,
it was
I
just
mean, his son's in his 30s.
well,
He's not.
I was just saying it was kind of a fun little moment.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Okay, I know what you were doing. You know?
yeah. So we get to we're here at the end of it now,
Yeah.
in the final
Wow.
scene. And Father Paul Riley is going to a meeting. He's
Yep.
going to get to a 12-step meeting. Father Paul, Monsignor Pruitt, holding these meetings, and the door's locked, and he's just about to walk away, and he sees Father Paul in this fucking pose,
Yeah.
and he just looks like. I mean, describe that. What is that to you? I mean,
That's just it's unnerving.
yeah,
It's a bit scary.
yeah. He
And it
looks like
made
he's about to launch off that fucking porch.
me like he knows he's being watched. And it also took me back to that I think it was episode 2 because it was at the picnic. Monsignor Pruitt used to always stare at me like this. And then now Father Paul's it just reminds just blank stares. You know what I mean?
Another excellent point. Another excellent point. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
just
he would
reminded me
just
because
stare.
he's just looking.
Yeah,
Just looking.
but it's not in the same context.
No. Well, do we know? Like, well, no, we don't because he wasn't having any type of physical changes yet. But it's still kind of harkened back, just at least to me.
Well, yeah, and when he steps off the porch, he seems to be okay.
Hmm.
But he's not the same same Monsignor Pruitt from last week.
No.
That easy go. This guy he's a little feral now.
Yep.
He's becoming a little feral. Um, he takes him inside, and they start having this weird philosophical conversation that no matter what happens, you can't question, that it comes from God.
Hmm.
Even if you don't understand, you have to give yourself over, whether you understand or not.
Hmm.
And you can see he's talking to Riley, but I also got the distinct impression that he's very much talking about himself.
Hmm.
This need for blood now all of a sudden, why, this is an angel, maybe this isn't supposed to be happening this way. This isn't something, out of the Bible,
Yeah,
or
because
any book that he's ever read, what the hell is happening to me? But, I'm not going to question.
he's constantly praying to himself every time when he's by himself. He's constantly, asking for guidance. Father Paul, I mean, from anybody, from God, just because of all this stuff that's happening. You know what I mean? So that's what makes me think he's struggling. Like he doesn't want to do, at least as of right now, what he's been doing or what he
Oh,
feels like he
he's
needs to do.
clearly struggling. I
Yeah.
mean, you can see in the end, all the praying that he does through these episodes,
Hmm.
through this episode, just to get through this, this craving,
Hmm.
and I guess that's the best word for it.
Yeah.
He's
The
just got
hunger.
this intense craving, and he's already killed someone,
Yep.
and they've covered it up. And what it's like that saying, when the bottom drops out, it just drops out quick.
Yep.
And that's what's happening to him, and it's happening too fast for him to catch up to it.
Yeah. He
And
can't
so
handle it.
yeah, he's praying for some kind of relief in the same way that I think Aaron and Riley were praying at
Hmm.
some point.
Hmm.
saying, that this burden is too much. Um, you know, take it off of us, this sort of thing. And then all of a sudden, our buddy shows up.
Oh man, and that shot, like first, it's literally just someone in a trench coat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But then we get that shot. It's a fantastic shot because Father Paul's praying, asking for help, asking for guidance, and then we just see a silhouette, and we literally just see like a nose and a mouth. But then we see a finger go up to do the shh,
yeah,
the hush mode. But it's got this long fucking fingernail, and I'm like, oh shit. Now first off, we know what this is. We know who this is. But now it's like, okay, now we know someone's in control.
yeah. There it is.
Right there. Now,
Yeah,
don't tell me that's not scary as shit.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, just interspersed in all this, struggle that the episodes, and it seems like the moments of horror are the only moments that really provide clarity.
Mm-hmm.
When we start to get into the paranormal, we start because there are just so many pieces that have slowly been getting filled in.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden he just starts slashing his wrist and filling that
Yep.
sacrament, crystal full of his own blood.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not pleasant.
No.
And then,
No.
unfortunately, here he is, just filling it up, and you never really get a good look at him.
No, it's just the hands.
Yeah, it's just the hands, it's just the silhouette, it's just the fingers, this sort of thing. And then, unfortunately, Riley comes in, and Father Pruitt and Monsignor Pruitt just says the one thing. He's like, "Oh,
Yeah. You know what? I'm not gonna. I thought it would have been funny, him being a Monsignor and being a father, whatever. If he would have just looked at Riley, just said, "God damn it." You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah, yeah."
You know
Well,
what I mean?
there's just no humor here.
I know, but
There's just absolutely no humor. And then all of a sudden, that thing just fucking launches on him.
yeah,
And
I did not expect that to happen.
because Riley, who would you say is the main character here?
It's tough, but it's tough because Erin is getting more. She's definitely not the main character, but it's definitely like to me 50-50 between Father Paul and Riley.
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah.
I mean, people might say Riley would trump Father Paul because we were introduced to him first.
Right.
We know his family, but I think it's pretty equal between those two.
I would yeah. I almost want to say it's Riley,
Right.
but yeah, if you were to say it's 50-50, it'd be tough to argue against it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be tough to argue against it. And so Riley gets fucked up at the end of this episode.
And then again, like the asshole Flanagan is, he ends it right then and there.
Right there on the cliff. This thing is fucking sinking its teeth into fucking Riley. And
I didn't expect that. Okay, I expected maybe, let's just say Henry Thomas was attacked, or maybe Riley's younger brother. I didn't expect Riley himself to be attacked by this thing. That's what really got me.
Well, let's just say this show isn't going to be pulling any punches.
Oh, I kind of figured that out, Mike.
Figured that out
right now.
It's not pulling any punches. There are some interesting things that we didn't go over. And one thing at least is that this recurring dream that Riley continues to have, where he's on the boat.
Yes.
He's on the boat. He can't steer the boat for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. There don't seem to be any oars or anything for him to change his course. He's just stuck there.
He's going nowhere.
Yeah, he's going nowhere. And, he just stays there until the sun starts to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, after he spends that one night with Erin, that night he dreams sort of the same dream, but with a little variation in that she's in the boat with him.
She is like that missing puzzle piece. That's how I took
How
it.
do you think? How do you mean?
Well, it's like I took it. This is how I took it. He's sitting there making no progress, and it's like he wants to go to that sunset. Like that's like the Holy Land. Emerald City, whatever you want to take it. That's where he wants to go, but
He
he's got
wants
no
to
help.
die.
You
He
think
kind of
that's what
wants
it
to
is?
die.
I
Yeah,
think
I think he has. I think he has a passive death wish.
okay.
When he's talking about what happens when they die, and that finally when he does die, maybe he'll have that dream, his brain will
Mm-hmm,
release all that DMT and all this stuff.
mm-hmm,
But he starts to talk about how his decomposing body
mm-hmm,
is going to serve a purpose. He's finally going to serve a
mm-hmm.
purpose. Feeding the bugs and all these different things. Yeah, I think he kind of wants to die.
Okay, I took it as like because again, he wants to better himself. He doesn't want to be stuck in this podunk town, and he just can't get anywhere. And then now, when Aaron shows up in his dream, that's what he needs to help him move forward. At least
Okay,
that's how I interpreted it.
okay, okay. Yeah, you know, I think he'd like to cling to that. If Aaron's going to be there with him, then that will be something to improve his quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. Because there's nothing right now.
Right.
We didn't see the recurring. We didn't see the girl,
Right.
from the accident this
First
week,
first episode that we have not seen her.
right? So yeah, is he making progress? Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's there in his head.
Okay.
He's not talking about death as something that oh he's yeah, I think he's got half of a death wish.
That's about yeah.
um yeah, and maybe Aaron does too, because I think unlike everybody else in the town, those two openly recognize that they're defeated.
Yeah, and that's and that's one thing. That's a good point because she finally gets Riley to pray. Of all
Yeah,
people, he finally does it, and she says something. I don't know what the line is, but she's just asking. She's basically asking for a break. You know what I
yeah,
mean, from God. We've
yeah,
all been there. You know what I mean. We've
yeah,
all been beaten to death, and we just, whether you're praying or whether you're just saying it to yourself, you just can't. We get a fucking break.
yeah,
And I think that that was a perfect scene for that.
yeah.
Hmm.
It's a very good episode. Very good
Oh yeah,
episode.
it
Not
was
the
great.
most action packed episode, but
Wasn't required
yeah,
for me.
yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Is there anything in the episode that we did not address that you think that we should?
I don't think so. I think we went pretty step by step and how it was. We got everything out that we
Yeah,
needed to
yeah,
discuss.
yeah. Without meaning to, we went an hour. We went an hour
Yeah.
into this. So, but there's a lot to unpack in these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And wait till you get the fucking next week. Holy shit! Wait till you get the fucking next week. Damn.
Can't wait.
Yeah, man. It's good shit. All right. I know it's late, or you got shit to do. Plug something if you want. Do you want to plug something?
Sure. Hey, Internet Eric here. That's my YouTube channel. You can find me there discussing movies. Finally, Mike is happy. I have started discussing the Underworld series. The video for the first movie is up. Um, Spoilers, I really enjoyed that fucking movie.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to see part two because I
that's
think
my
Mike,
favorite one.
I was gonna say I think you left a comment
Yeah.
how that was your favorite one, and just the way that movie ends, man, really fucking good. So yeah, I'm diving into the Underworld series.
Yeah, and like I said, I was always disappointed at Victor and Lucian. Like you never
Mhm.
saw Lucian's werewolf.
Yeah,
I would have liked to have seen Michael Sheen because Michael Sheen's a great actor.
he was so
You
good.
know,
He was so good.
yeah, yeah, they're all very good. It's a very
And anytime you see Bill Nighy in a movie, whether it's something like this or it's fucking Pirates of the Caribbean, where he's Davy Jones, the squid monster type of guy. You know what I mean? The
sure,
squid pirate.
sure.
He's always fun.
Yeah, he's even there in those last two Harry Potter. He's in one. He's in Harry Potter for like 15 minutes. He's the Minister of Magic
Okay.
right before Voldemort schwacks him. But all right, for this channel, we will be back next Sunday as we cover yet another episode with Goraphobe of Penny Dreadful. I don't know if we're going to do a film next week. I don't know. I'm going to see if it's up with Rod with the interview. If not, we'll come back to it. I want to save that for him.
I got an idea. How about this? If Rod can't do it, let's go back and we'll do Ginger Snaps.
We can do Ginger Snaps next week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do that, but let's leave it up to Rod because I don't need to know. I don't need to fucking watch Interview with a Vampire. I've seen that movie 100 times.
Right.
So if we find out by say Tuesday night, that way I can watch Ginger Snap. So just we'll make the
No,
decision.
I'll check with Rod and I'll see if he's available. I'll check with him later today and I'll send him a
Okay.
message. Do you want to get it on for next week? If not, then we can do the Ginger Snaps. But starting the week after that, I've got another series coming up that I'm going to be working on. And I think we're going to take a hiatus away from film. So I'll continue this with you. I'll continue Penny Dreadful with Gore. And then I've got a new series coming up on Prime with Josh Brolin, a sci-fi series. No, with J.K. Rowling. No, J.K. Simmons. And Sissy Spacek called Night Sky. And it is supposed to be fucking phenomenal.
Well, you got two great
sci-fi series.
Two great actors right there with Sissy and J.K.
Yeah, that's tough to beat. So I think I'm going to ride this series train for a while. They're fun to do. They don't take all that long. There's a lot to unpack in these things. Nobody else is talking about them. So, yeah, that's all good. All right. My thanks to Eric from Hey Internet, Eric here for stopping in. And I guess we'll see you all in the next video. Cheers. All right, guys. Take care. Have a good one, everybody.